Good evening. Nearly 600 runners needed medical attention at the Hong Kong Marathon today, and 37 who collapsed had to be taken to hospital. 2 of them are still in serious condition. Organisers are looking into improving safety after a small stampede at the beginning of one race caused by runners stopping to take pictures. ATV's Britain Planet was there.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying was at Nathan Road in Tsim Sha Tsui bright and early this morning to start the big race. Organisers said more than 65,000 runners pounded the pavement in one of Hong Kong's biggest sporting events, which was again dominated by runners from Africa. Around 10,000 who had registered for the race failed to show up, but it was still a record turnout after last year's 62,300. The 420-kilometre full marathon passed through West Kowloon and along the Tsing Ma and Ting Kau bridges before going through the Western Harbour Tunnel to begin the home stretch on Hong Kong Island. But there was trouble right at the start of the easier 10-kilometre race. A group of runners collided into each other and fell. The pile-up was blamed on a runner who slowed down to capture the moment on a camera phone. Organisers promised to look into it to see how something like this can be avoided in future.
Our main concern is the safety of the runner all the time. By having your own telephone as a camera, this is a very dangerous move. Especially, you have to watch out the condition of the runners surrounding you.
Others collapsed from exhaustion. After crossing the finish line of the main marathon at Victoria Park, this runner was in trouble. Paramedics tried to resuscitate him. He was rushed to Rattanji Hospital. Many others found the going too tough. Dozens were sent to hospital. 2 were admitted in critical condition. Hundreds needed medical attention during the race, most of them suffering from cramps and sprains. This isn't the first time the Hong Kong Marathon has proved dangerous for some. Last year, a 26-year-old runner collapsed and died shortly after finishing the race. The recurring incidents have led many to question whether the city is ill-suited to host the outdoor event because of the foul air. Pollution levels were medium to high for today's race, meaning acute health effects are possible.
There's no disputing the popularity of this marathon, which has become a signature event for Hong Kong. Every year is a new record for the number of people taking part, despite concerns about the polluted conditions, which have also become a signature of this city.
Some were particularly worried about air quality in the Western Harbour Tunnel.
The tunnel's not great, you know, it's like about 1 kilometre and the cars aren't with you, but you can kind of feel it.
Very polluted inside the tunnel. It's suffocating inside the tunnel. Outer tunnel is better.
Organisers denied that pollution had anything to do with the number of people collapsing. They said it was more likely that people were simply not fit enough for the event and recommended that next year contestants should begin training far in advance.
The Hong Kong Marathon is all about serious competition for some and just a day to clown around for others. Today's races featured runners chasing personal goals, colourful costumes and the world's oldest marathon runner. ATV's Bo Lang reports.
Rising at the crack of dawn, Hong Kong marathon runners warmed up and stretched their muscles in Tsim Sha Tsui before the start of the main race. Many runners were there for fun rather than serious competition. In the less gruelling 10-kilometre race, some runners took part to face their own challenges. This woman lost her right leg in a car accident last year. She wanted to prove to herself that she could do it and finished the race in less than 90 minutes. The record turnout, more than 65,000 people took part, didn't go unnoticed by veteran competitors.
It's getting counted years by years. We have more and more people.
Many people beat their own personal best times.
This is my 5th Hong Kong Marathon, so I'm glad to get a personal best this time around.
Local and international runners agreed that the city put on a good show.
It's well organised. Thank you to all the organisers and the sponsors, and hopefully see you guys again next year.
Good, really nice atmosphere and very well organised.
It's very good. Thank you, Hong Kong.
Also out there for a final hurrah was 101-year-old British Indian runner Fauja Singh. It's the second time the Turban Torpedo has joined the Hong Kong Marathon, and his 10-kilometre run today was his last, as he felt he should not be pushing himself too far.
Because he's 101 years old, so he said he will finish in 101 minutes.
The world's oldest marathon runner beat that time and finished in 93 minutes. Many were in high spirits at the finish line at Victoria Park. One couple went the extra mile with a marriage proposal. Berlag, ATV News.
ICAC Commissioner Simon Pei has warned people who lodge complaints not to disclose any details or even reveal anyone is under investigation. He reminded them it's a criminal offence and they should be aware of the consequences. Concerns have been raised recently that people are using the ICAC as a political tool to smear reputations simply by getting the anti-graft body to look into their accusations against their enemies. Financial Secretary John Tsang has estimated that half of potential home buyers will be exempt from the new property market cooling measures he announced on Friday. Tsang said he will not hesitate to roll out more measures if these don't work. ATV's Anne-Marie Sim reports.
Exuberant is the official word the government is now using to describe Hong Kong's overheated property market and its astronomical prices. Fresh from announcing new anti-speculation curbs, Financial Secretary John Tsang wrote in his blog today that the government had to act now because the market was still exuberant despite its efforts last year. The measures, which include doubling the sales tax on most property transactions, will hit speculators, developers and realtors. First-time home buyers and local owners who are moving house will be exempt as long as they own only one flat. Tsang said he studied transaction figures from recent years and calculated that half of local home buyers would be exempt from paying the higher stamp duties. That's to address concerns that genuine home buyers will suffer. He also expressed concern that cheaper properties would become the target of speculators, which would lead to the market heating up further. For properties priced below $2 million, the stamp duty has been raised to 1.5% of the transaction value from the former flat rate of $100. The Financial Secretary wrote that extreme times call for extreme measures, and he will not hesitate to roll out more if the situation does not improve. And once again, he warned home buyers of the risks involved, as interest rates will not stay near zero forever and the supply of flats is being ramped up. One suggestion by a pressure group to relieve the housing shortage is to put struggling young people in shipping containers converted into homes beneath flyovers. But in his blog today, Development Secretary Paul Chan pointed out that current planning regulations don't allow for flyovers to be used as housing. Chan wrote that according to the law, spaces under flyovers can't be developed into residential units, elderly homes, cooked food outlets or supermarkets because they're a fire hazard. The Development Minister noted that if anyone did live under a flyover, they'd have the noise and air pollution to contend with. What's more, Chan wrote, converting spaces under flyovers could result in overcrowding and traffic problems for the area. Still, he said the government was open to unique and creative suggestions from the public on how to free up more space for housing. Long-term Housing Strategy Steering Committee member Stanley Wong is optimistic that the government's new measures should work and lower home prices. Critics are complaining about government intervention in a free market, and some say the anti-speculation measures will not bring down astronomical prices in the long term. But Wong said these are not the strongest set of measures up the government's sleeve. The housing advisor suggested that if the market heats up again, policymakers could raise or introduce more stamp duties and even tax owners of vacant flats. The controversial idea of introducing a tax on vacant flats has been floated by various groups to prevent owners from leaving their properties empty for too long for the sake of pursuing better sales or rental agreements with tenants. Developers and realtors have also been known to hoard flats to keep prices up. Despite his support for it, Wong believes it will be difficult to enforce a vacancy tax. He cited the example of a person who owns a flat in Hong Kong but works on the mainland. If this homeowner only came back to Hong Kong to use the flat, say 4 times a year, would that still be considered a vacant flat, Wong asked. He suggested punishing developers instead for hoarding flats. There is a stock of 4,000 unsold new flats in the private sector. Official figures show that last year, of the more than 6,000 flats built by the private sector, 1/3 or 2,000 remained unsold. While the government is making it much more expensive to buy and sell property, there are still signs that demand for homes remains high, and so will prices. According to Sun Hung Gay's Deputy Managing Director Victor Lui, the government's latest measures did not affect sales of units at its new residential project in Tseung Kwan O today. Lui said the property giant would continue launching projects at its own pace despite the property curbs. He added that non-local home buyers only accounted for 2% of those who bought flats in its new project today.
One of the SARS heroes who helped tame the killer virus 10 years ago has warned that it can come back easily if we're not careful. He says all it needs is a revival of the food trade in wild animals. 10 years after the SARS pandemic, microbiologist Yuen Kwok-yung of Hong Kong University remembers the formidable challenge that he and other health experts faced as they tried to understand what was then a mystery virus spreading around the world. The focus was initially on the influenza A H5N1 virus until Yuen's team identified the mutant coronavirus which was causing SARS.
Growing the virus is one thing. Proving the relationship between that virus and SARS is another very important landmark in the workup of SARS.
Yuen and his team developed an antibody test for the detection of SARS in infected patients and suggested the use of a particular antiviral drug as well as steroids to treat patients, something which experts now say is not necessary.
When you cannot give oxygen to a patient is going to die, you have to consider using steroid. Now, I'm not defending it. Not everybody needs steroid. I'm not defending it, but some patients may need steroid. But now, even this, you may not need to do it.
Yuen and his team cracked the genetic code of the killer virus after it was traced back to civet cats, which had been infected by Chinese horseshoe bats. A decade later, he's warning that we can't afford to be complacent.
It can come back easily if you open up all the wildlife markets again, putting all these bats, civets and raccoon dog together. I'm sure that it will come back because around 15–20% of the Chinese horseshoe bats are shedding the virus. Looking back is not going to have very much. We do have to march forward and face the brave new world.
2 teenage Hong Kong girls have been found safe after police here sent 3 officers to Argentina, fearing they were being detained illegally. Security Secretary Lai Tung-kwok said the 2, aged 17 and 18, had contacted the Chinese embassy in the Argentine capital on their own. The pair have retrieved their travelling documents and will return to Hong Kong after helping Argentine police with their investigation. One of the girls has sent a WhatsApp message to her boyfriend saying she was being held by men demanding money for a valuable vase she had broken.